Hey, Guoba here, Guoba here, with a guide on Bronya, the tall wind one that is. She's an incredible buffer for nearly every unit in the game and the unit most people rerolled for. She does have some problems though. Speed tuning just like with Yukong is a pain, and her current recommended sets are not really her best, even before the 1.2 Relics drop, which will change up her Relic sets again. People also don't seem to know how to use her, but we will explain all of this in this video. So we will go through her stats, abilities and how exactly they work, traces and eidolons, and then her pros and cons. And then we'll discuss her actual best relics, including the new ones, and her best light cones, and finish with her rotations and some team compositions. I also think she will be Blade's best support, and we'll explain a little on why. If you like these guys and want more, please consider liking and subscribing, it really helps me out, and I'm doing an in-depth guide on every unit in the game, and updating whenever I'm wrong. Anyway, let's begin. So Bronya is a 5-star wind character and part of the standard 5-star units in the game. She follows the Harmony path, the path dedicated to buffing your allies. At level 80 she has a high base HP of 1241, putting her at the 6th highest in base HP. She then has a base attack of 582, putting her in the bottom 10 for base attack. Bronya has a high base defense of 533, the highest out of all non-preservation units at 4th place. Then she has a base speed of 99, which is the 9th slowest in the game, and the energy cost of 120, which is average. As a Harmony unit, she has a lower chance to be hit than the tankier paths. Now onto her abilities, which have some nuances to them. Her basic attack, Wind Rider Bullet, will do a normal amount of wind damage to a single enemy, dealing 30 toughness damage, regenerating 20 energy, as well as 1 skill point. Her skill, Combat Redeployment, is a support skill. It will first remove a debuff from the ally selected, which is incredible for a Harmony to have in their kit. Then it will allow them to immediately take action after Bronya's turn. Then it will increase their damage by a percentage, 66% at level 10. If you use it on herself for whatever reason, you won't gain the action advancement part. This was introduced to avoid abusing the funny skill spam tech on herself from the beta where she could keep taking turns. This skill is her niche in the Harmony path and is what we prioritize when we want to slot Bronya in a team. This skill will regenerate 30 energy and consume 1 skill point. Her ultimate, the Belobog March, is a support ultimate. At level 10 it will increase the attack of all allies by 55% as well as increase their crit damage equal to 16% of Bronya's own crit damage plus 20% for 2 turns. With your base 50% crit damage, 64.8% from a main stat piece, 8 average crit damage substats and her crit damage traces, you're looking at 184 crit damage on Bronya, and so at a well invested Bronya, your ult will give a team-wide 49.4% crit damage buff. Excellent ultimate. This ultimate has an energy cost of 120 and will refund 5 energy on use. Her talent, Leading the Way, will advance her action forward when she uses a basic attack. If this doesn't scream skill point neutral playstyle by nature, I don't know what does. This will advance her forward by 15% at level 1, up to 30% at level 10. So this will advance her action by 30%. Action advance affects your action value. Your action value is 10,000 divided by your speed. So the higher your speed, the lower your action value, and thus you take turns faster. Say you have 100 speed, you then have 100 action value. Your first turn takes place at action value 100 and your second at action value 200. If you use your basic attack at level 10, you advance your second action by 30%, meaning your action value for this turn is multiplied by 0.7. You will now take your second turn at action value 170. She essentially every basic gains 30% of a turn extra. This is essential for her playstyle and is another reason why skill point neutral is so good for her. If you don't basic, you don't advance forward and your DPS will end up being too fast provided they self speed buff, which all Hunt do so far. They could cycle too fast and end up ruining one of your turns. Her technique, Banner of Command, is a support technique, meaning you can stack it with others and can use an attacking technique right after. After using it, all allies' attack will be increased by 15% for 2 turns at the start of the next battle. It's a strong and easy team-wide buff and useful to use on any fight. Now for traces. Her first essential passive, Command, increases her basic attack crit rate by 100%. Now don't get your hopes up, this doesn't enable DPS Bronya, it just gives her a little more damage when she does end up taking those basic attacks. In combination with her crit damage stacking, you will end up doing some damage. Every Harmony has some basic attack enhancing mechanic and this is Bronya's. Her second passive, Battlefield, increases defense of all allies by 20% for 2 turns. This is okay and only benefits fast fights. Her third passive, Military Might, will increase all allies damage by 10% when she is on the field. This is the true winner out of her passives and is great to have. Her bonuses give her 22.4% wind damage, which is okay, 24% crit damage, which is awesome for her, and equals a 4% team-wide crit damage buff on her ultimate. Finally, she gets 10% effect resistance, which is amazing for her, especially as being CC'd with speed tuning can mess things up. This won't do much at endgame though, so you'd need effect resistance subs to help. For trace priority, her A6 is the best, and the other two should be unlocked anyway for her minor traces. Her skill and ultimate should be leveled first, and then her talent, and then you don't need to level her basics. Now let's check out her awesome Eidolons. Her first will grant her a 50% fixed chance of recovering one skill point when using her skill, with a 1-turn cooldown which only takes place if you recover said skill point. So it means if you skill and recover your skill point, you have to wait till your 3rd turn to have another chance. It is RNG, but when it does proc, you'll be happy you got a free Bronya skill. Great first Eidolon and synergistic with the skill point neutral playstyle, but it does also help the skill point negative ones. Her second will grant the target of her skill a 1-turn 30% speed buff after they take action. This is a weird one, but it can be really strong in some ways. If you make your ally take a possible 2 turns instead of 1 before Bronya takes her next turn, it's awesome. If you can make your ally that's behind you from CC or something zoom ahead and put your speed tuning back in order, it's awesome too. If you ruin speed tuning with this, it's a bit annoying, but this will help keep speed parity with allies that don't have self speed buffs. So Jingyuan, for example, he doesn't have any speed buffs, but this speed will make sure when she basic attacks and gets that advancement forward, she won't go ahead of Jingyuan. Her 4th Eidolon is probably her worst, but a funny one. When an ally uses a base attack on an enemy with wind weakness, Bronya will launch a follow-up attack on the target and deal 80% of her basic attack's damage to that enemy. This won't take her passive's 300% crit rate and is a very poor Eidolon damage-wise. This also won't work unless you're bringing her into wind weakness, and we don't bring Bronya to break wind enemies, we bring her for the buffs. If you do find yourself in this situation though, like in a future mono wind team, it's a free 5 energy every turn, as well as 30 toughness damage. This can make her do a 3-turn rotation without spamming 3 skills, so it's pretty nice but has niche cases. Her final one is the real deal and again promotes skill point neutrality. It will increase the duration of the damage percent buff from her skill by 1 turn, now giving a 2-turn 72.6% damage buff to an ally. Incredible final Eidolon, it essentially doubles her buffing power when going skill neutral, and allows her to properly synergize with units like Jingyuan. It also could be used in 2 DPS playstyles to give them a permanent buff, but this is very skill point heavy. So let's discuss her pros and cons. Her pros are her hyper carry buffs. She alongside Ting Yun has the highest DPS buffing capabilities in the game. Extra turns, damage percent buffs, attack percent buffs, crit damage percent buffs, all in one. She also has some decent utility in her cleanse on her skill. Her advancement forward can also be one of the most versatile and strongest buffs in the game, especially for squeezing out damage in Memory of Chaos cycles. Her talent is a great boost to keep speed parity with her DPS, but we will go more into that on her rotations and build. She also has a strong buffing technique that is pretty universal. Finally, she's Harmony and with an energy rep can maintain her normal rotation whilst having access to some really strong team buffing light cones. Her cons are also her buffs. She won't be able to buff 2 DPS as well as Yukong or Silver Wolf can, but that's fine as we don't need to bring her in every team, that's what other units are for. She also has weak toughness damage. We're looking at 60 toughness damage in 4 turns, 180 at E4 versus a wind weak enemy. She also has low damage compared to the rest of the Harmony units, even with that free crit, but Harmony units aren't made for damage anyway. Finally, she has speed tuning annoyances if you want to min-max her and her team's damage. But speed tuning is dumb and can fail to CC, so she can end up having turns where her skills advancement forward mechanic is literally useless. So let's discuss Relics. Everyone made the connection of her being wind, her being a support, and then the wind set having supportive capabilities, as it would speed her action forward upon using her ultimate. I've found that it does more bad than it does good. So the wind set advances your action forward by 25% upon using your ultimate. Sounds great, right? The problem is it ruins Bronya's skill in some cases and barely improves it in others. If you run a slow Bronya, and more on this after, you will take your turn after your ally and skill them, giving them essentially 2 turns in a short span of time. If you ultimate however, your action will be advanced too much, meaning you take your turn faster than your DPS. This means you will no longer double their turns and using skill would only cleanse and grant them the damage percent buff. If you're a bit slower than your DPS where the advancement forward wouldn't affect you, you'd gain some value of the wind set, but barely. On average, it gives you about 4% more efficiency in action value reduction over no wind set. So at that point, farming it either gives you 4% more efficiency or ruins your team comp. So I recommend going Musketeer. I recommend as soon as 1.2 hits to farm the new Hacker Space set. We don't have its percentages, but the way it's worded, it will increase speed of all allies, including herself, so it won't mess up any speed tuning and it's a buff in every way. The speed buff on the 2-piece will also allow you to go less speed subs to tune to your DPS. You can use that farmed win set if it works for you. For plain ornament sets, stop running Celestial Differentiator. It's a meme and it's a 2.56% crit damage buff on her ultimate for allies. And the attack percent from Fleet is stronger and lasts all the fight. So run Fleet for now, and in 1.2 her new best in slot will be the Kill set, giving crit damage to all allies for the whole fight, as well as buffing her crit damage buff on her ultimate. It will probably be a small amount just like the Celestial set, but the universal crit damage will hopefully be a good amount. The effect resistance pairs nicely with her traces and will promote more effect resistance stacking on her to avoid CC and debuffs in general, ruining her day and her tuning. Fleet will still be basically as good in my opinion. And finally, Von Whack is needed for the fast Bronya playstyle, which we'll see in a bit. For main stats, you will want to go crit damage chest all the time, and then for boots you go speed or tank depending on how much speed you want on her. Then you go tank orb, not winch damage percent, it does nothing, and then an NG rope. Tank main stat just means HP percent or def percent, both are great to get a balance of. And then even with her signature, I still recommend getting an NG rope, since you'd have to run Von Whack if not, and that can ruin slow Bronya's speed tuning. For substats, you'll want to get your speed to the right amount, which is impossible to say exactly how much, but I will try my best in the rotation section. You'll also want to get crit damage subs, but you don't necessarily need to roll for just them. Remember, just because you can get some more buffs out of it doesn't mean it's the best option. Being tankier, having more effect resistance is more important than a 2% crit damage buff. She will want some tank substats and most importantly effect resistance substats. I'd say 8 crit damage subs is a good cap to reach for. And we don't know Kill's effect resistance amount, but if it gives 10% effect resistance like Pangalacta gives 10% effect hit rate, which are equal in substat values, then we're looking at 50% effect resistance value with Kill, her traces and 8 effect resistance substats, which halves all debuff chances. Her best light cone is of course her signature. The NG is nice and allows for a different rope in her 4-turn rotation if you run Von Whack. I recommend just running NG rope still unless you want to go fast Bronya. With the NG rope and her signature combined, you can also get a new 3-turn rotation with 3 skills, which I also don't recommend unless you're swimming in skill points. The damage percent is of course perfect for her, and can bring her damage percent buff on skill to 96% at S1. It will also regenerate a skill point every 2 ultimates, but that's 3 to 4 turns after your first ultimate and isn't as amazing as it sounds. Past and Future gives a better damage percent buff until S2 of her signature and is a great free to play option. As for any other options, since she can 2 skill 2 basic with an energy rope, you can run any light cone on her to buff your allies. So for a win DPS like with Blade, she can run Planetary Rendezvous, giving him even more damage percent and being stronger than her signature light cone damage wise, unless you're skill spamming, which could actually be acceptable with Blade. For any other team, she could run Carve the Moon or Dance Dance Dance. For her rotation, it will depend on what you want to do with her. If you want to run fast Bronya, you will run Von Whack and enough speed to basic and then end up behind your DPS to then skill them, which means you're skill point neutral and still benefit from your skill. Here's a chart showing the speed needed to give your ally another turn when they're halfway through their next turn's action value, so your Bronya skill would be 50% efficient. Basically, she kinda needs Von Whack at high DPS speeds and a lot of speed if not. It's impossible without Von Whack for speeds above 135. Or 75% efficiency, so your Bronya skills them when they're only a quarter through to their next turn. Here are the speeds needed with Von Whack. Basically, fast Bronya is scary to build and it's probably better off going for slow Bronya. Slow Bronya can be nearly 100% efficient on her skill uses. Fast Bronya is however good for enabling fast DPS bursts on the first wave, but Von Whack doesn't work afterwards, and so this will fall off and probably ruin your turn order anyway unless your DPS is much faster. Fast Bronya is also good against CC from enemies, as she will end up a bit behind your DPS and either gain maximum efficiency from her skill, or be able to cleanse your ally, which gives them a turn back, so CC on your DPS won't really matter with fast Bronya in most cases. With slow Bronya, instead of a basic attacking first, you skill first and then basic on your next turn, if you run the skill point neutral playstyle. You're basically running enough speed to be behind your DPS by a certain amount, which can vary depending on their own speed and speed buffs. So they take the turn, and then you skill and they basically take another turn. For Zila, you can run 1 to 2 speed behind her and keep turn parity with her talent. This might be a bit different in game. For Yanqing, you need to be like 10 speed behind. For Danheng, it's somewhere in the middle. and Sushang is very difficult since she relies on breaks, so you'd have to go a bit slower than her. For any DPS that doesn't have self-speed buffs, you have to be a bit slower if you want to gain maximum efficiency and not outspeed them with your basic attacks. If you run skill spam, then you can be behind them and not have any issues, but that requires a lot of skill points. If your DPS go too fast, it's okay and you'll just basic attack or skill them and let them zoom ahead of you. Slow Bronya is weak to DPS being CC'd, but you can still cleanse them and get their turn back. The moral of the story is that speed tuning sucks and you just basically want to use skill when it's very worth, or just use it anyway because the damage buff is crazy, and if you run her skill point neutral, it's fine to use. If you run her skill spam, the loss in value hurts. Skill spam can be effective on SP neutral or efficient DPS, or any DPS that don't have speed buffs, and you'd have to have a lot of skill point positive teammates. As for skill point neutral or efficient DPS, so far we have Arlen, who doesn't want to be pushed forward, Sushang E1, who needs a broken enemy, and Blade, who comes out in 1.2. Skill spam is also much better at E1 and S1, provided you also have skill point positive teammates. For Synergies, it will be nearly every DPS. Yanxing and Arla need to stay behind a tanky shield, so not them ideally. Clara Hypercarry at E1 can be run with Bronya, but it's a bit sus. Some great DPS examples are Danheng E2, giving him tons of talent activations, and Zila, since she can abuse the one-turn damage buffs on her resurgence. As for the Blade synergy, I think she will be Blade's best support. Her damage percent buffs and crit damage buffs are superior to everyone else's, since the rest of Harmony provide attack percent, which according to CPT2, he scales very poorly on. The extra turns will be awesome for his talent charges too, and mono wind in the future is a real possibility. We just need a defensive wind option. Planetary Rendezvous also means Blade will be getting a ton of free damage at all times. Also, Blade being skill point efficient means she can skill spam freely, and he doesn't have speed buffs from what we know, so the tuning is simple. Finally, the cleanse from Bronya can save Blade in sticky situations. For team comps, you basically bring her with a solo sustain, your chosen DPS, and then ideally a debuffer like Silverwolf or Pella for maximum DPS. You can also bring her with the second Harmony. Now this is for a hypercarry comp. If you want to bring her with 2 DPS you can, and solo sustain can be replaced by 2 weaker sustain if needed. A free to play team will be Danheng, Bronya, YMC and Natasha. I used to run this a lot in the early game. A whale team would be Zila, Bronya, Luocha and Silverwolf or something. I don't know, she's a really strong unit and can go nearly anywhere. Anyway, that's all on Bronya. If you like this guide, then consider liking and subscribing, it really helps out. Thanks to all my members so much, and thank you for watching. Have a good day.